Hello everyone, my name is Raz and welcome back to the Anime Dungeon. On today's One Piece D20 video, we will be looking at Haki. Now, if you're not far enough in the series to have known this, Haki is basically some kind of mysterious power found within most beings in the world. Here it says every, but I guess that could probably be true, but only some people actually know how to use it. Now, Haki comes in three types. I'm going to use the English translated names because I don't want to sit here butchering these pronunciations. We have Mantra or Observation Haki, Armament Haki, and Conqueror's Haki. Now, Conqueror's Haki is special because only 1 in a million people are said to be born with it, and you cannot train to do it. You have to have been born to do it. So that's the first thing that's kind of weird to me about how this game handles Haki. The other weird thing is the requirement for it, in that you need to have 18 ranks of a save, reflex for observation, fortitude for armament, and will for Conqueror's Haki. Now, in order to have 18 ranks, you need to have one or all of these specialized, and you'll be level 15 when you hit 18 ranks. That is the only way you will be able to have Haki, is if you specialize in one or all of the saves. If you do not specialize, even at level 20, you will never have a rank high enough unless you go past 20, which the game does give you rules for how to handle that, but I'm just trying to compare this to Dungeons and Dragons or some other game, and I can't really imagine that ever happening. In fact, getting to level 15 would be pretty uncommon. Getting to level 20 would be very uncommon in my group, but maybe you playing games where you get to level 20 very often, and then I guess it's probably not a big deal. The other immediate concern I have is how not often you get to use these. I know that's kind of a weird way to say it, but all of them can only be used once an hour. Now, on the forums, Bad Karma has talked about this many years ago, and basically they prioritize game balance over being fully faithful to the show. So I guess I can see where they're coming from in that respect. But at the same time, Armament Haki is super important for your melee characters to have. And even your ranged characters, I guess. Basically everyone. It's important for at least one person in your party to have this, or you're going to have a hard time later. Because if you get put up against a Logia, the only way you can hurt them is with this Armament Haki feat, or by using a Sea Stone on your weapon. Otherwise, normal bullets and attacks theoretically go right through them. I'd have to double check the ruling, but I'm pretty sure that one is exactly as it is in the show. So with the negatives out of the way, at least for now, let's talk a little bit about each individual Haki. So we have Observation Haki with the requirements of 18 ranks in reflex save. And I don't know if I explicitly mentioned this, but you'll notice on my character sheet there's a total rank and a rank column. The total includes any bonuses or your stat bonuses, but that's not what you need to have at 18. You need to have the actual rank at 18. Anyway, this stance allows you to gain a huge bonus against attacks, spot, and sense motive checks. It's a plus 10. So that's pretty big, because in the show, someone who is using this Haki can basically dodge out of the way of everything, and that's kind of the idea. A plus 10 on your defense is going to make you extremely difficult to hit, short of a natural 20, pretty much. Now, the other thing is this is consistent with the Armament Haki, you have to roll a concentration check of 20 each turn to not fall out of this stance. Which, if you don't have a concentration skill, that's going to be nearly impossible. I guess not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult. If you have this skill, it's still a very high number you're going to have to roll to hit. So you're going to, if you want to utilize these all the time, you're going to want to have a high constitution score, because that's the stat that controls the skill, and you're going to want a high concentration skill if you can possibly handle it. This skill can be activated once per hour, just like all the other ones, and it lasts for 1 minute. Now that doesn't sound long, but each round is 6 seconds, so it lasts about 10 rounds. Depending on how strict your DM is on time, maybe it'll last longer, maybe it'll last an entire encounter. That's how I would probably handle it. After an encounter, you'd have to wait. But then again, that's kind of exploitable, because then most times I wouldn't care enough to pay attention to if an hour had passed between encounters. So I guess that's kind of up to your DM how they handle that. And then this feat can be taken more than once. It doesn't say specifically how much more than once, so I assume that means infinitely. And each time you take it, you can increase the bonuses by 3, so 10 becomes a 13. Increase the duration by 1 minute, or a total of 2 minutes. Or reduce the concentration check by 2, bringing it down to 18. That is really good. That is really good. I would definitely take that more than once to get at least 1 rank of all those, to be honest. But then again, by the time you get this, you're going to be level 15, so you're not going to have a lot of feats left to spare. So I guess that would be kind of a difficult decision. Now, the Skypians get a weaker version of this just by being a Skypian. And the difference is that they only have to roll a DC 17 concentration check to stay in the stance, and their bonus is only +5. So that's actually really powerful, and it's a little easier to do. They can't upgrade it directly to this unless they have the 18 reflex, and then it just becomes this skill instead of that one. So I would probably suggest, if you can stat out your character just right, that if you pick a Skypian, then you can have a weaker version of this and then go with one of the other haki, so you don't have to use more than one of your favorites for primary skills, because that just seems kind of bad. Because if you want all 3 of these, you'd have to specialize 3 different things, which would mean you'd have 1 favored left, which would mean you'd have a choice between your attack, defense, and initiative, basically. Now, some people might not mind that decision, but I personally do, so I would probably always either be a Skypian, or I would just go for the armament, to be honest. Speaking of the armament, how it works in this game, it can be used once per hour, just like the other ones. Requires a DC 20 concentration check to stay in it. Lasts a full minute. And you can take it more than once, which lets you either increase the damage reduction you receive by 5, bringing it from 10 to 15. The maximum duration by 1, bringing it to 2 minutes. Or the unarmed weapon damage by +3, meaning you get a +6. And I said that in a confusing way, but basically it powers up unarmed attacks and weapon attacks by 3 damage. So with this, it would be 6. And as it says here, it allows you to damage Logia fruit users normally, which is very important. Lastly is Conqueror's Haki, which is not a stance, which is kind of interesting. I understand why it's not a stance. It just is kind of weird to me, because then you could be in like armament stance and use this simultaneously. So, again, the Conqueror's Haki is a very rare Haki that cannot be attained through training, and only 1 in a million people are born capable of using it. So if I was running the game, I would not just let anyone take this. There would have to be a roll during character creation where they roll like a natural 20 or something like that to say that they're allowed to take this. Because I think it's kind of ridiculous that anyone can take this. Admittedly, they do have to specialize in will save, which, depending on your GM, may or may not come up. The immediate thing I can think of for will save would be resisting someone else who has the Conqueror's Haki, so I guess, I don't know. I mean, there's probably other cases, like certain fruits could probably do a will save. If your DM likes doing mind games and stuff, you might need to do will saves. I don't know, but in my experience, the will save would probably be the least useful of these saves. So I guess that might be the trade-off, is that you have to specialize in this save that's not particularly great for anything. But anyway, once per hour, you can choose up to 10 targets and roll your willpower against theirs. If you win, they fall unconscious for the same number of rounds you beat them. So if you beat their roll by 5, they would be unconscious for 5 rounds. So if you rolled a 20... No, again, that's a bad example. If you rolled a 16 and they rolled an 11, the difference is 5, so they'd be unconscious for 5 rounds. If you roll a natural 20, it's handled differently. That's why it was a bad example. Basically, if you roll a 20, all of the rest of the targets in the area have to roll individually, and the difference determines their turn. So if someone rolls a 1, they're unconscious for 19 turns, or etc., etc. This does not affect characters that are higher level than you or that are the same level as you. So I guess its usefulness might be questionable. That seems like a really bad statement to make, because I'm thinking more along the lines of D&D. But if you think of it in terms of the show, if you just jumped onto someone's ship and you want to deal with the captain and there's like 1,000 grunts wielding swords, sure, you can kick their asses, but it's going to take you forever. So you could use this to knock them all unconscious and then go fight the captain individually. So I guess that's kind of the place where you'd use this. And you can take this feat more than once. Each time you increase the amount of targets by a factor of 10. So if you take it 3 times, you can affect 1,000 targets, which is pretty huge. I'd argue you probably never need to go above that rank, and honestly, I'm having a hard time imagining when you would even need this rank. Like 100 targets, I can't imagine any kind of D&D game where I've fought 100 things simultaneously. But then again, I shouldn't think of it like D&D, I should think of it like the One Piece show, and there might be 100 people on someone's ship, there might be thousands of people on someone's ship. So I guess in that context, it makes sense. So yeah, in conclusion, they handled Haki kind of strangely in this, but ultimately, it seems like it works. It seems pretty balanced, and if you take the feats more than once, it can be very powerful. And potentially necessary if you have to fight Logia users a lot. So until next time, guys, this is Raz, and I'll see you again very soon.